it's okay to say in life, I don't know. Now, do you agree with that?
Uh, I think that could be one of the most important things to say in life, first to yourself and then externally. I think that absolutely that's the only way you're going to either face your fears and challenge and empower yourself, and or that's the only way you're going to get other people behind you to say, well, I thought you knew. No, I don't. I know this. Can you help me with this? Yeah, absolutely.
So for you to have become as successful, and to me, success probably in your eyes is all relative. It's still probably a place you still want to go even higher. I would still say that you have probably reached this point where you don't you don't do things you don't want to do. So do you give yourself permission, or what? Did you have a come to Jesus moment, or what happened?
Oh, when? Because I've done plenty of things that I don't want to do. I still till today in I don't do big things I don't want to do, meaning take on a new job, investment, deal with anybody, or go to any. Well, I go to events that I don't want to go to. But overall, I don't do things that I don't want to do. I don't take on life journeys or 5-year journeys. What I do that I don't want to do is I don't know, uh show up to certain events because I know I owe it to somebody. I don't necessarily want to be at the event, but you know what I want to do? I want to make good on my word. Um so listen, I don't want to get up early in the morning either. Listen, I don't want to ramble. So let me best
I
explain
like it.
this.
It's a good question.
It is. Let me best explain this. To stay healthy in my life, I need to try to walk 10 miles or reduce my intake of bad food or increase my exertion, right? I don't want to do either one of them at any given time. Last thing I want to do right now after I get off the phone with you is try to knock out, 15 of my hopefully 100 push-ups I'll do throughout the day as my rotator cuffs get back in shape. I don't want to do that, but I know that there's something bigger. I did not want to throw out half of the dirty Cinnabon that I found.
It was that good. It was one of those. So, but
Yeah.
looking at well, let's talk about crazy. Because you've been in the media for a number of years now, long enough that you've probably heard some crazy rumors about yourself. What have you
Yes.
heard? Tell me.
I've heard I'm a billionaire. Well, that's not the craziest rumor because I sit next to billionaires. I'm not a billionaire. Not a problem. And I make sure that I tell people when they say, "Oh, you're a billionaire." No, I'm not. I've heard that. I heard that I had. I don't know. I heard that I had a wife I left in Atlanta. I was living. I don't know. I left her for my current wife. Not that I know of. I've heard that FUBU was sold. That was always. And meanwhile, I'm out here always, wanting to just, make people aware of all the amazing things that is done. But I'm trying to think of anything super crazy. I I've had a pretty good life where people, something to say is that when I first really started having public acknowledgement, meaning I was around 28 and I started having public acknowledgement. But that time, the media controlled everything. They were the gatekeepers. There was no social media. There was no internet. Um, I was saying because I came from the streets, I never did anything illegal, but I had a lot of friends in that space. I'd always say, I'm a really raw guy. I'm from the hood and this and that. And I used to think that I was so bad. Not a bad boy, but I used to think that if somebody like today's day and age were to dig into my past, that there would be a lot of stuff to uncover, and people would say, "Oh, wow, he really is a street guy." But I've been through it so much. I think I convinced myself for the first 10 years I was so bad. But as I reflect now, and as even you're saying, one of the craziest things you've heard about you, I've heard I try to steal one person's company. I've heard that's actually something fairly recent. I realize I'm really not such a bad guy, and I haven't done that many bad things. I just And I think it was maybe inferiority complex of when I didn't have any money and I was walking into rooms, and it was this theory that everybody else grew up with decent education and everything else, and nobody ever did anything that was questionable. And then as I've learned over my course of the past 25 or maybe 30 years of being there, I've learned that I really haven't done that much, and there's a lot of people who've done a lot worse. On the flip
Well,
side of
I
that,
think that's the interesting thing, because morals and ethics tend to swing in the wind, do they not?
they do, because the flip side of that, as much as good as I have hopefully done and tried to do, I wake up and I see people who they don't have a pot to piss in and I want to throw it out, and they're doing 10 times more than me because they are digging wells in Africa. They went to school all their life to be a doctor just to go into places of destruction to save those. They're teachers, they're veterans, they're firefighters, they're people who are running into burning buildings with 100 pounds of equipment on, knowing that there is most likely a chance that they will never see their family again. And I have the nerve to say that I'm helping people. So each one of those things can swing either way.
I think it's fascinating, back to helping people, because there's this global mindset that only people with wealth can help other people. And
Yeah.
only people with wealth can make a difference. But from what I'm hearing from you is it's that anybody that can be part of it.
The government has dropped several trillion with the right intentions of helping, and often it hasn't helped. And then there will be a person who will, take bullets from people who are trying to assassinate her because she's just talking out against the fact that women don't have the right to have an education. And she will help way more people than the $1 trillion of a government dump, right? And even if you have wealth to try to help people, who's deploying the energy that wealth is giving to, right? Because let's say I give away X amount of dollars. Well, who's making sure it's being put to use, and not just in a monetary standpoint? Who's making sure the food is being handled, or the shelter is clear, or the well is being dug, or that illegal gun truly got taken off the streets and melted down so it won't harm anybody and take another child's life or adult's life, whatever the case is. It's always the everyday people that are and when you look at fundraisers and campaigns and all these people, like I have Bethany's a good friend of mine, Bethany, and she goes into other countries and she helped during destruction, and she's not like some of these places where the money goes elsewhere. She literally is like, I have $1 million, I'm buying $1 million worth of food, and it's going onto this plane, it's going someplace, right? And the money that's raised is by a bunch of people giving $5, $20. It's not by that.
Isn't that interesting? Is that we're all part of it. So for you,
Yeah.
finding a balance must be very challenging, because you have a high
Yeah.
performance brain. You can't turn it off. It's a curse and it's a blessing. So what are you doing today as a better version of you post 40? Now you're a 50-plus-year-old buck. But what are you doing to find the balance? Because to me, failure leaves clues, as success leaves clues.
Mm-hmm. Powerful question, because I don't think anybody has ever, not knowing me, unless it's in an article that you've seen. I don't know if I've said it publicly, but no, I can't turn my brain off. I can't. I literally can't turn it off. And most executives or most high functioning people, if they can't turn their brain off, they resort to, and that's why you see substance abuse very heavy, meaning generally alcoholism. Because if you travel the world, and I travel the world, by the age of 35, I traveled the world several times. I felt like I shook everybody's hand on the planet twice. However, every single country was an airport, a couple of boardrooms, a hotel, and maybe a restaurant. And I moved to the next, and I didn't have time to work out and various other things. So there was no release. And if there's no release, usually you'll see it at the Four Seasons or any place else. There's a bar full of as Billy Joel was saying, the piano man. They sit at the bar and put bread on my jar, and they say, "Man, what are you doing here?" The waitress is practicing politics. The businessman is slowly getting stoned. And what happens is you don't find a release. And so high performing people, they take it out in some way or another. And what I had done over the course of my life, and I have gotten to the point where, yeah, I wasn't abusing it, but to the point of somebody who's in sole control of my life. If I know that I'm drinking every single night, 2 or 3 doubles, and I'm doing that for 4 or 5 years straight, even though it's not an abuse, it's a habit, and it's a habit that is in no way beneficial to me. Besides maybe the temporary release, which at the end of the day then compounds to having more work the next morning, right?
Right.
I altered that with goal setting. And I've always set goals, and I read a certain amount of goals every single night every morning when I get up. I'm very public about doing that. I learned that from Napoleon Hill. 6 of them expire in 6 months, the other expire in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years. I never hit my 6-month goals. I read them before I go to bed. I read them when I wake up in the morning. It's just not a simple goal. It is an action that I have to say, what am I trying to accomplish? In what method will I accomplish it? What will I do daily? And the most important part of the goal is, why am I doing it? Because what is the payoff for it? One of my goals were, I'm going to lose, and I'll give you basically almost a real one. And I failed at it 12 times, meaning they're in 6 months increments. That means I failed for 6 years at this goal, right? And the goal was, I'm going to drop 20 pounds by, July 4th by substituting one green drink for a breakfast meal. I'm going to then put 10,000 steps on my Fitbit. I'm going to drink 10 bottles of water every single day. I'm not going to eat any fried foods and or meats. I'm not going to eat after 6 p.m. unless it's after a workout, because I must earn the calories. And I will do 1 hour of training at night, and I will approximately lose 1 pound per week. And by July 4th, I will get down to my ideal weight of 173 pounds. And I'll be able to fit back into my Shark Tank suit season 1.
Well, it sounds though that you know the recipe for you. You've gotten to know you all these years. You know
Yeah,
that.
but let me share with you the point. I didn't lose any. I would yo-yo. I never lost the weight until we all know what we need to do, or we're willing to do it. Until my last session of doing these goals, I changed 2 things in there. Because at the end, I visualized me in my Shark Tank suit, back to 173. But the 2 things I changed, and the last one is, I said, I will no longer consume alcohol. And instead of seeing myself in my suit, I said, I will drop this weight so I can live longer, so I can be here to walk my little girl down the aisle. And 40 pounds dropped off immediately. No trainer, no nutritionist, because of 2 small adjustments. Seeing a bigger goal, which was me physically being healthy, walking who my little girl is now 7. That means at least she's not going to get married till she's 95. So I have to live that long. But seeing myself physically until to be at that age of whatever it is, right, 20 more years, and also knowing that all this stuff I'm talking about, intake and everything, I'm putting in 400 to 500 empty calories a night in my body, and it is slowing down my metabolism and is making me slower in the morning because I don't want to get up and I don't want to work out, and it is a vicious cycle. So I changed both of those in that last setting, and that's when I dropped everything.
So that I must ask, if you were consuming this much, it was to make you feel better. What was going on that was holding you to say, I need this to feel good? Because from what all of us perceive, you are joyful, happy. You're not mean to people. Occasionally, you'll hold people accountable to your best of your ability, at least with the edited version that we see. But what was it that you were holding on to? You've met all levels of success by all definitions.
No. It was like most business people. It goes back to the initial thing you said. How do I cut it off?
So that then I remember a number of years ago, you jogged a memory. I was in Malta, and on the street, someone had spray painted or had painted there, I watched the greatest minds of my generation destroyed by madness. Because I think that's what happens. to high performance minds, or I would say the people that most of us perceive as being the top of the top. Yourself is what it takes to get there, what it takes to maintain it.
Right. So, why would I have a couple of drinks? Now, would I be hammering them? No. But first of all, I got to go to dinner with one or two clients I can't stand. Not because I can't stand the client, but the process. Got to explain things or do and deal with things. And then at dinner, and then I finally catch up with you or buddy or my wife, and it's like, wow, time to celebrate. My day's over, and I don't want to be thinking about numbers and licensing and GDP and what I need to do in an interview, and what I need to get set for lights and cameras, and how is my distribution going over here, and what do the bankers need to see? I want to just chill and hear a dad joke. Yeah, babe, let's talk about Cobra Kai. What happened? Because I've been watching CNN and CNBC and Fox and NBC and Wall Street Journal all day long.
Heavy is the head that wears that crown, Daymond.
And thank God, right? Because how dare I had those problems and I was broke and almost homeless too. So which one would I rather?
So that kind of brings me now towards the end. And that is looking back, pre-40, you were already successful, post-40. If you could go back in time, not give a younger you advice, but give a younger you a outrageous piece of advice, what would it be?
An outrageous piece
Outrageous.
of advice. Outrageous.
You're talking to a younger Daymond. The younger Daymond has just stepped in Stockholm, Sweden for the umpteenth time. What would that piece of advice, outrageous, to a younger you?
Go to maybe the mountains or someplace where there's a little village and nobody about who you are or about modern day things that that we may think about, cars, materialistic things, and ask the eldest person in every single one of those travels where you've been, male and female. Ask them what advice would they give to you in life, to look forward to and to avoid, probably.
And you mentioned that you're a parent. I'm also a dad of two. And when I had told my neighbor that we were having a child, he's a TV personality himself, and he said, his name is Jerry. He said, Dustin, you're preparing your kids for the day you're no longer here. And it seems to me, as we're now into your, we say you're past your 20s, being very impulsive, 30s, a little less impulsive, 40, even getting more or less impulsive in 50s. How do you want to be remembered by your daughter?
I just want my daughters to remember me as a father who grew up with them, who was growing simultaneously, who did the best that he could do for his family, did the best that he could do. I can't say heavy religious, very spiritual, and did the best that he could do to make the planet a better place in a sense, and was very, very human about it, and took risk. My daughters will never, I don't think maybe later on in life they'll understand, and I don't know, they'll understand what I went through to get to where I am, like everybody does. But to overcome those things and to break the chains of what people think success traditionally is, of cars and jets and look at me, look at me, look at me. I hope that they will understand that it is about content of who you are as a person and how you can, I do tell my daughters this, and not all the time. I tell them this sometimes. I said, I've never been to a funeral where they talk about what somebody had. And I always, whenever they talk about how somebody made you feel or how somebody affected your life, and that's the most important thing that will be remembered from me. So hopefully I articulated that well enough where you understand what I'm saying.
You did, Daymond. I'm a former foster kid, and I will tell you that life's tough, but Daymond John, you're tougher. What you were able to overcome, what you achieved, wasn't just remarkable, it was impossible, because it started with a mindset that I can, because I've come to determine that we create our own reality, and we can create a hell on earth or a heaven. And we have all of the tools. We have all the people to go ask. They say, if you want to gain wisdom, ask a wise woman or a wise man. Thank you so much today for sharing your story with me. I got to tell you, you're pretty tough, man. Thanks again.
Well, thank you. Great question. I don't think I've been asked half of those, so I appreciate it. And thank you for extracting that stuff. And now I got to rethink life. I appreciate it.